Yes. Right. Stuart, thank you so much. And now, one of our very strong campaigns that has been being fought over the last several years has been on HS2. And obviously many of us are aware that the HS2 campaign isn't just about a particular British government project, it is about a whole European perspective. And one of the leading campaigners on this has been our transport spokesman. Please welcome Jill Seymour.
Good afternoon, conference. Are you enjoying yourselves?
Yes.
Please don't leave. The best is yet to come. And that's not me. I suspect most, if not all of you in this room, are sick and tired of the EU meddling in our affairs when it is clearly none of their business. Are you fed up with the endless rules and regulations from the faceless bureaucrats who do not understand our way of life? And have you had enough of this ridiculous notion that one size fits all? Well, you're not alone, conference. This is precisely how the EU works. It just cannot stop meddling. The Oxford English Dictionary describes people who meddle, and you may relate to this, as to interfere with something that is no one's concern, or to touch or handle something without permission. Now, I don't know about you, but I reckon that sums up the European Union to a T. It is their meddling that is dismantling and destroying our national transport network, whether it be road, rail, sea or air. Their ignorance of our transport infrastructure not only brings financial burden to our industry, but impacts on our daily lives. Here in the UK, we rely on transport for pretty much everything. So, why do we want to give up control of this vital lifeline to an undemocratic organisation, which is the EU? So let's start with railways. Historically, Britain was at the forefront of railway development throughout the world. For the first time in decades, railways are a point of a serious political importance. The reason is Jeremy Corbyn's political populist but practically impossible statement about renationalising the railways. Now, regardless of anyone's opinion on whether we should renationalise them or not, Mr Corbyn is off track. He thinks the EU will allow him. He obviously doesn't know the EU, as that since they brought out the first railway directive in 2001, it has been illegal for us to renationalise them. What does Mr Corbyn not understand? He swung from possibly supporting the Out campaign to now confirming absolute loyalty to the EU. Then, 2 days later, he announces a policy that is legally impossible if we remain in. He is either misleading us or he's misleading himself. Either way, this should convince Labour supporters that UKIP is the only sensible option. Did you know the EU now has set up a quango called the European Railways Agency, who believe they can change our railway history? Worried? You should be. This faceless bureaucratic organisation has a budget of €25 million and sees itself as a parent organisation for all European rail networks. They have a master plan, but Britain is not to be a centre of it. Instead of putting up with this interference from this quasi-quango, shouldn't the nation that gave railways to the world be capable of managing its own railway infrastructure? Damn right, it should. We should, sorry. Of course, there is only one UK railway project where money seems irrelevant. Any ideas, guys? You've got it. HS2. My favourite subject. This project, which UKIP has opposed right from the very start, is a textbook case of EU meddling. It is presented as an entirely British idea, and it may have been on the outset, but this is no longer the case. It is now part of the EU's TEN-T infrastructure, and no matter how many times the government says it will consider objections from the public, nothing will be done because nothing can be done. The whole project is pushed by the EU through our spineless government. HS2 is an enormous waste of money, which we do not have. It is a vanity project with a majority of rail users do not need or want. It will cause mass destruction to historic villages, houses, graveyards and woodlands. And who knows how much HS2 will actually cost. In the space of a year, the estimated budget has already risen from 55 billion to as much as 70 billion. Now, just a fraction of this money could transform our existing rail network into an efficient national railway system from north to south to east to west. Finally, on Railways Conference, has anyone heard of the European Rail Traffic Management System? Yes, believe it or not, it is yet another quango, another waste of money. This is a group who wants Britain's railways network to go metric. Now, our train drivers, who already claim they are overworked and underpaid, will have to start calculating speeds and distances in both imperial and metric measurements. This is not only totally unnecessary, it is costly, it could be extremely dangerous. I agree wholeheartedly with the rail unions who see this as a waste of money, which would be better spent on keeping fares down. But you know what they say? Give the EU an inch, and there take a kilometre. That's another part of EU meddling. Now, another part of EU meddling is the Certificate of Professional Competence, the CPC, which is forcing otherwise competent truck drivers completely out of the industry. And why is this? Because it places an extra layer of compulsory training on experienced drivers, taking them off the roads and costing them a significant amount of money for certification and loss of earnings. Since the EU legislation has come into effect in 2014, we have lost thousands of truck drivers all over the UK. Now, these were not lawbreakers, but people with clean licences and years of unblemished services who decided to quit the industry rather than pay to sit through extra training that they did not need. No wonder the UK haulage industry now has a shortfall of well over 45,000 drivers. Conference, this could be so different. If we left the EU, we could abandon this heavy-handed bureaucratic burden, retaining experienced drivers and attracting a new generation in the haulage industry, safeguarding its future. So when the referendum is finally called, all we have to do is vote to leave. So now let's move on to driving licences in Britain. Now I could spend all evening, or all afternoon explaining this one, but I have to cut it short. We produce some of the safest drivers in the world, and that is why we have some of the lowest road casualty rates. Yet a driver coming in from the EU, where standards are usually much lower, can exchange his driving licence, his or hers, for a UK licence after living here for just beyond 185 days. You may not be aware of that. But guess what, conference? Yet the number of crashes involving foreign drivers on the UK motorways rose in 2014, representing an increase of 14.3% since 2012. That was 3 years ago. As long as we are members of the European Union, there is nothing we can do about it. But don't worry, Big Brother is watching all of you. Yes, the European Union is insisting all cars must be fitted with a GPS tracking system, eCall, starting from October this year. Now, for those of you who remember, I call it the Martini system. Anytime, any place, anywhere. The difference is, this particular measure is hard to swallow and leaves a very nasty taste. 2 million vehicles are produced in Britain every year, and the Department of Transport reckons prices will rise to cover the additional cost of eCall. So once again, the public picks up the bill. Conference, this nanny state attitude is a disgrace. If we are old enough to drive, surely we are capable enough of choosing for ourselves if we want eCall system fitted to our cars or not. But surprise, surprise, you will not be given that choice. But remember, it doesn't have to be this way. All you have to do is vote to leave. Now, talking about Big Brother brings me to the subject of smart motorways. You know, the overhead gantries, every 500 metres, not miles, filled with cameras and traffic monitoring systems. They're driven by yet another EU directive, which paves the way for a continental road pricing system, something which UKIP strongly opposes. The rollout of smart motorways is eating up a significant portion of £3 billion allocated to highway investment. Now, personally, I'd rather see this spent on filling millions of potholes and investing into our existing road network. Now, as a member of the EU Transport Committee for more than a year, it's been an interesting one. I can tell you there is no end to their meddlesome pieces of legislation being opposed upon our Department of Transport. So I promise you, I will continue to fight their senseless laws. But I remind you, just remember, that the legislative control of transport was surrendered when we signed the Treaty of Rome. They even have a power now to make us drive on the wrong side of the road. But I still believe driving left is driving right. So finally, let me just turn your attention to aviation, which contributes more than £52 billion to our GDP. That equates to 3.4% to our UK economy and employs 960,000 employees. It is being stifled by EU employment laws, red tape and regulation. But believe it or not, the control of our UK airspace also seems to be under threat from something called the Single European Sky, or as I'd like to call it, the Schengen of the air. They say the sky's the limit. Clearly, no one has told the EU. Because of the EU meddling, our trains are being derailed. Our vehicles are going round the bend. Our ships are being forced off course. And they certainly have their heads in the clouds. Conference, the answer to all of this is very, very obvious. Say no to the EU and let's leave. Thank you.